you said, quote, because I want to talk about Animoca over the last year and what you've been doing and raising money, what you're investing in. And you said, quote, if people say this is crypto winter, then 2018 was the crypto ice age. And you went on to say, now is the time to deploy more capital, not less, as Bitcoin hits its low today. Explain that statement and explain what Animoca has been doing, because when we spoke last year, you had a $2 billion valuation. You just raised, I think, $110 million at a $6 billion valuation.
Give or take.
Give or take, which I guess you said was flat on the last raise, but like you said, flat is the new up. Explain that quote and explain what Animoca is doing lately and what the plans are.
So if you think about our approach in 2018, and just to put context on all this, right? Bitcoin was $3,000, Ethereum was $150, or maybe sometimes at one point, I think in 2019 maybe even dipped below 100, right? I mean, that was bad, right? Because people were running for the hills, right? You have to remember that the context at the time was that not only was crypto suspicious, it was generally considered an avenue for scammers. It was purely speculative. Everyone didn't understand the value or believed it. The only people that were there were just trading, and when there was no money to be made, they were out of it, right? So that was the world in 2018.
The ICOs had just happened, and people would run with the money, and
exactly.
it was just...
And it was a terrible time, and that's why I would describe that as an ice age, because it wasn't just the value dropping. It was the fact that there was nobody there, right? It was literally frozen. But now, I would say that despite the fact that there's volatility in the market, people are building. When you talk to, as I think you've experienced when you meet people and you talk about sort of what's happening in the space, there's excitement. Everyone's like, this is cool. I want to build in this space. I want to be, I see the future of Web3, and prices are one thing, but I know where this train is going. I see it, and I want to be a part of that. So it feels much more different, right? Value aside, which is of course rocky. But then you look at, for instance, nation growth as well, right? If you take a look at, for instance, I gave this talk, during Korea Blockchain Week, and I was sort of charting out the growth of Korea as an economy, because Korea was an interesting example for me, because literally 30, 40 years ago, it had no property rights. It was a military dictatorship, South Korea. And today, South Korea is, I think 12th or 13th largest GDP in the world, economic powerhouse. But what's interesting about them is they don't have oil, they don't have gas, they don't have natural resources in the same way that many other countries have. It's all sort of natural talent, or actually I would say creative talent. It's people, right? And that's actually what fuels, the metaverse as well. So there's many examples. And if you look at, for instance, this big, if you remember back in, I think it was in an Asian economic crisis, right? Back in sort of 98, right? South Korea was crushed, right? It was growing and was crushed and everything. When you look at the chart, it was actually a blip, right? If you take a 30-year chart, it was just a blip. But if you just measured that particular sort of horizon of maybe 12 months, it looked like a precipitous fall. And I think this is what people look at when they say, oh, this is a crypto winter, because look at the prices in December of last year, and 1 year later, the prices are here. Yes, that looks pretty scary. But what if you charted this over the last 10 years? What does it look like? Actually, yes, it's volatile. We recognize that. But generally speaking, it's on the way up, and it's moving because of the fact that more people are entering this space and they're seriously building. So that's the perspective. Now, if you're building an environment, despite all this volatility and despite all the risks involved, then you must be a true believer in general. I'm not saying that that's true for everything, but certainly that was very true in 2018, 2019. If you're building in that space, if you were doing it for money, you should be doing something different, right? But, and the same is true here. So this is where I think you find some of the best builders. This is also one where you can find some of the best opportunities to invest in these kind of companies, because even if they've been around for a while, maybe valuations are lower, for instance, and you can help them out differently. And there's maybe an attractive entry point, for instance, to collaborate, as long as you believe in what they do and you think, obviously, that they're your mission aligned and whatever else is that you're looking for. So that's really what we mean. Now, has the pace of investing slowed down, generally speaking, this year versus the first half of the year? Yes, it has. But it's not so much of an issue of capital. It's just a matter of deals that are out there. Before, there was a ton of deals we had to look at. And frankly, the pace was quite sort of frantic. Right now, we have the time to look at these opportunities. There's less competition as well on these deals as well, because there's less capital, generally speaking, that's competing for these deals. So there is a general slowdown in the space, but you know what? People are still investing, right? I mean, I think we continue to announce investments, as do many of our peers, right? Despite what's happening in the market for the last 6 months. So what does it show you? It shows that there's still a commitment to do it. If this was a true winter, there should be absolutely no investment. People are like, oh, investment dollars have gone down by like $1 billion, but hey, $3 billion was still invested. I mean, do you mean, like, does that feel like a winter to you? I mean, in actual context, that doesn't feel that bad. Maybe you have to just work harder to raise the money. Maybe you have to compete more, which, by the way, is how the real world works, right? And it would be very different if there was nobody investing, right? Which is what was in 2018, 2019. Like, we were literally the only person on the cap table. And then when we would enter, they're like, "I'll put in 50,000, right? You know, I'll put it." It's completely not the same.
I think I was talking to Taryn from one of the DeFi optimization protocols, and he said, like, when he left his job at Google and went to work on blockchain, like, all his friends and family said, "Oh, you're a scammer now. You're going to be a criminal." Like, he's like, you don't understand. It wasn't just a winter. It was that you were ostracized for going into that field. You know.
Yeah. And people don't say that today. I mean, they might be like, "Oh, this is risky," or "Are you sure what you're doing?" Maybe for some people that are more conservative, but people do recognize the power of what is there. And people understand that that there's a future that you can't avoid. The number of people that who are my generation that have entered the space because of their older kids, especially in college-age kids, is becoming probably the majority of older people who are entering the space, not necessarily as a firm, but individually, because their children are sort of raving about it, saying this is the future and they need to understand it. And they started deploying this a little bit. Things like FTX, obviously, you know, from a reputation standpoint, doesn't help, especially because he was so vocal and because a lot of people thought of him as, you know, the good guy, the one who, you know, was you know, helpful to the industry. In comparison to maybe some of the sort of earlier problems that we had in the ecosystem, many people viewed as these people generally not in a positive light. They assumed already that they were up to kind of sort of problematic things. You know, people from the industry definitely understood that, you know, Terra wasn't actually, you know, Terra Luna wasn't actually sort of a stable coin in the way that, you know, was expected. So when what happened with SBF, I would say, with FTX, that was, I think, less impactful in terms of the pure financial aspect as it was in a reputational thing. And I think what we're maybe witnessing right now, particularly with the price of Bitcoin, is more the reputational aspect rather than necessarily the, I guess, fundamental aspect of the value. And I think there's something interesting there. I think Bitcoin fell more than Ethereum, although I haven't seen the prices today, so probably have to analyze that, but at least historically it's done that, which goes down to show that from a utility and from a building standpoint, right, the builders who are generally on EVM are, you know, undeterred working on stuff and have found, I think, better resistance than, say, something like Bitcoin, which is really a store of value and as such, therefore, a kind of store of crypto sentiment for that capital class.
I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm going to tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone, also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline. I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy, from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up. If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you gonna do? What's the choice that you're going to make?